Welcome to PLZ Soccer's Football Podcast. I'm Peter Martin. In the studio with me today, I'm delighted to say, we've got Alan Rough, Tam Cowan, and a very special guest, former Motherwell player John Gahagan. I'm going to say Motherwell legend because you can't be a former legend, Tam Cowan. So it's great to have John. We've been battering away trying to get him into the studio, and finally we've managed to do it.
Absolutely, and I must say it for everybody who reckons that I go to town on the 91 Cup winning team, which Johnny sadly missed by the proverbial ball here. It was actually our old First Division title winning team that was my all-time favourite Motherwell team, the one in which Johnny starred, because that was at the right age for you to really fall in love with football and see your team, as we did that year, taking 5, 6, sometimes 7 goals off of teams on a weekly basis, running away with the league title. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, we finally won a midweek up at Wraith Rovers, and then all the Motherwell fans spilling onto the pitch. Now, when you're kind of 12, 13, that stays with you forever. So I would say, no, just for the sake of Johnny, that was the ultimate Motherwell team, the ultimate Motherwell season for me.
Yeah, always good to start off with a bit of pain, just to remind John that he missed the cup final by a ball here. So that's a good opening.
It was a bit better than a ball here.
That's a good opening for us. But he's talking about it as your favourite side. Do you remember? I mean, he'll know it off by heart, but do you remember that side you played in?
Well, I remember the lead up to that season, because that's when Tommy McLean pushed me out the door.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hold a good memory, so why the fuck he's bringing it up?
And at that point, I mean, the 81 side,
yep,
full of good players.
81, 82, Joe Wark, you had Hugh Sproul, you had one of my favourites at the time that Johnny will remember, a guy who I think had started off as a centre forward, and I can think of maybe Paul Hegarty before him doing this, and it maybe didn't work out for him up there. They put him back to centre half, Steve McClellan, and he was outstanding. He was like Beckenbauer for a season. You had big Joe Carson, who everybody always thought was a bit like Hen Brown. You had the great underrated Brian McLaughlin, who was absolutely amazing that season, our player of the year. It was just a brilliant team. Willie Irvin, who scored a barrel load of goals, including, and this is one a bit like the way that James McFadden's goal against France gets further and further out the more that you talk about it. Willie Irvin scored an overhead kick down at Clydebank, which I think was for about the edge of the box.
It was a 6-yard box.
It was like a low trundler of an overhead kick. But again, I was 7-1 that day. We were doing that to teams every week, and as a kid, it was absolutely amazing. Was that you at your peak, John? Was that the peak for you, that team?
It was a great memory because of the reasons that Tam's talking about. Actually, you know when you're a good team, when you're taking 5 and 6 and 7 off a team's home and away, and that was David Hayes' overthrow of the regime of Ali MacLeod when Ali got sacked and Davy Hay became the interim boss, and things were going so well they had to give him the job.
Aye.
And the difference being, as I tell folk on the circuit, that Davy Hay every single day in training trained us to be football players. And that might sound daft to some people, but we weren't weightlifters, we weren't marathon runners, we weren't sprinters, we weren't boxers. He trained us to be football players. Every day in training, we set up a routine where we scored goals. And I know it's an old story, but that's exactly what he did. Back to the middle, to the front, goals, out wide, in the box, goals, midfield penetration, goals, every single day. And then what happened? We broke the goal scoring record for the First Division. Isn't that funny?
And the strange thing about it is that we kind of know you, all of us have got that knowledge of you when the light shines on you and it's after dinner speaking. They think, oh, this is magnificent, you're a tour de force at it. What were you like when you were a youngster in the Motherwell dressing room? Because dressing rooms are a venue of great hilarity as well.
It's something I missed when I left the game, was the camaraderie among all these amazing personalities, because you had every type of personality you could get in life. In every different aspect, you had very well spoken people, you had the guys for the schemes, you had streetwise boys, you had hardy guys, you had the whole spectrum, and great entertainers, guys that you think, wow, he could be on the stage. But I just sat back and
But I bet you
soaked it all in.
that's how you'll enjoy the after dinner speaking as much, because you get so many. Peter, you'll have had ex-footballers, guests on shows and stuff, and the first thing they say is that they really, really miss the game. They miss playing, they miss the dressing room, they miss the crowd and all the rest of it. But when you're up there doing your stuff at a dinner, you're getting the cheers and the applause that you go as a player, and it's a bit like Roughie as well. When you go to the dinners, you're getting the boos and people throwing things at you that you used to get when you played football. So it'll bring it all back for you, as well, you know. But I'll tell you what, see with that team, before you move on for that team, bizarrely, and Johnny will fondly remember it, one of our greatest performances in that 81-82 season with that brilliant Motherwell team was actually a defeat. But it was a defeat to the Aberdeen team, who a year later would triumph in the Cup Winners' Cup. And Aberdeen came to Fir Park Scottish Cup tie. They beat us 1-0, but they scored their goal in, I think it was 9.3 seconds or something, John Hewitt. And then Motherwell absolutely pulverised them for the rest of the game. And it was, I'm guessing at 13, I bet it had been one of the first games I'd ever seen a team, after a defeat, getting a standing ovation, getting off the pitch. We were magnificent that day.
Do you remember it, John?
Oh, I remember it well. I remember Ian McLeod he tried to clear the ball, and he stood in the ball, and Hewitt just toe poked it under his foot into the net, and that was as a goal down.
Yeah.
And then McPherson raving about you.
No, he didn't really rave.
Oh, he did.
What they did was they showed clips, and this is still in my memory, and it will haunt the Motherwell fans, because this is what I was like. I tore Doug Rugby to shreds. But my final ball was so erratic that we just couldn't get on the end of things to get the equaliser.
Did you work at your trade then? Because a lot of players that come in here say they trained the way they played, and if they were weak on something, they'd go and they'd work at it.
I know that's easy to say, but you need to think back to the late 70s and the early 1980s, and the facilities, the training facilities that Motherwell had, and how they worked their training sessions. So you had there was no brand new footballs, there was no beautiful pitches, there was no AstroTurf.
Yeah.
So sometimes you were up the rugby parks up at DL, on the slopes with the 6 inches of grass, October, November, December, January, 6 inches of mud. So when training was finished, they just pack all the stuff away and off you go. So if you wanted to stay for an extra hour to practice your final ball, where are you going to do it?
Aye.
Out in that mud with an old tatty. Do you know what I mean, though?
Aye, oh no, you're right.
We were the same. We used to go up to Roughie Park. That's where we trained, up and down the park, in the trees, in and out the trees. Oh, that a wee boy used to clean my boots. And every time we went to the park and we come back, he says, I'm not cleaning that shite off your boots. Because what you were doing was running about with ducks.
Yeah.
No, duck shit everywhere.
People wouldn't believe it. When I was at Clydebank and we trained on the Tuesday, Thursday nights, most of the time we trained in the car park.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't believe it, at the back of the car park.
On a tarmac?
There was an ash.
Yeah.
Tarmac getting into an ash bit as well.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how players had a good first touch. Although the good thing is Giggs has mentioned there, Roughie, about the patter in the dressing rooms. When you think about the players that you would miss around the place, Tony Higgins for me is absolutely fantastic, because obviously he tells that great one about Bertie getting his European Cup medal.
It was all like that. It used to be a joy driving into the training. No, because you knew you were going to have a bit of banter, and somebody would be carrying on, somebody would do something stupid. I don't know if you remember a way back, the treatment room used to be just, everybody used to wander in and out. You wouldn't get in now, you're either in that room or you're not in it. And I don't know if you remember that ultrasound machine. This ultrasound was a new technique, and they'd strap the things on. You'd be lying there and like, Tony, you'd be sitting there just reading the papers. Somebody come in and just yank it off. Your whole muscle, your leg moving. All you could hear was screaming. A wee Bertie used to have a good one as well. He used to, when you're on the treatment table, managers always thought you weren't injured. You know, they just said, you're no injured. We better used to get about with scalding, you know, these towels that you put in the thing. Used to just lift a bundle of them, throw it at people and while they're getting treatment, scalding their legs and everything. It was mental.
That got you back on the training field anyway. Who did you like? Who did you think's patter was good when you were a player?
Oh, there was Brian McLaughlin that Tam mentioned, who was a masterful player, absolutely magnificent, and he did win the 1981-82 Players Player of the Year.
Yeah,
that year. I was actually nominated.
Is that right?
Aye, there were 4 nominees, and it was McLaughlin and Gahagan for Motherwell, and there was, who was the Hardy boy for St Johnstone? Was it Pelosi?
Oh, aye, yeah.
The boy for Queen's Park.
Was it John Pelosi?
McGregor.
John Pelosi.
John McGregor that went to Rangers.
I'm sure he was with Queen's Park.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he was one of the nominees.
Yeah. And
But McLaughlin was amazing. Andy's patter in the dressing room was funny. But Alan Mackin, remember Alan Mackin?
Yeah.
Big hardy boy, he was funny too. My mate Stuart Rafferty. But there was always half a dozen guys at least who seemed to compete with each other.
And how can you make that transition when you're in that dressing room and you're saying you're sitting back, you're watching it, you're studying it? How did you make that transition to suddenly get to a point where you thought, I could actually reflect on this. I could tell people these stories.
Oh, you know, I don't know how that happened. I would love the guy who goes on the stage to come here right now and help me out with this.
Yeah.
Because I really struggle in this situation of being exposed to the public, and it's just me and no my alter ego.
Yeah.
Because it's Tam and Roughie, and you'll know yourself, when you get introduced at a gig, something takes over. And if you've not got that alter ego to take the microphone and take the stage, then you're dead.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel the way right now that I did in the dressing room. I feel I would rather just sit back and let you guys perform, and I could enjoy it rather than try to be part of the...
And that's what would have happened if he could have agreed terms a day with Joe Cammy. the bastard let us down.
Yeah.
And we've spoken of this on numerous occasions. We actually spoken about it with Big Andy. Do you think the kind of manager that you worked under had that effect on you? To be, you know, I don't want to upset him. I'll just take a step back here. I'll keep quiet. Depending on who the manager.
I think that
did
comes...
the managers bring it out of you, bring the best out of you?
Aye, that's a good point. I think it comes for your education, because our education is based entirely on sit back, shut up and obey. And that's what our whole education system is based on. And so the people who like to who can break away from that philosophy, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I was one of the wee boys who wanted to be nice and obey and say nothing. And then I realised that doesn't work in life, and it doesn't get you anywhere. It just makes the controllers want to control you even more. So it's a good point. So when I seen the characters performing, I thought, this is great. These guys are just gone against the grain. They don't give a fuck about... They didn't give a fuck about the manager.
Yeah.
You know, some of them didn't care what the manager thought about them or whatever.
Yeah. And see when you were playing though, I mean,
Does that make any sense?
Aye.
it does. It does to me and Tam. See when you were playing, did you? I mean, my brother is a Motherwell fan, which is amazing for Tam to find out. But he would go to Motherwell and he would say to me, "Oh, I love Gahagan, loved watching you play." Do you think maybe that did you have a complex that you thought you couldn't go on to be even better? Everybody I speak to said, "Oh, he should have been going on at another level again." You know, when you were on form, you could rip anybody up.
Psychological strength is big in sport, and if you're psychologically flawed, then you're fucked, really.
Yeah.
So if somebody told me I was hopeless, I would tend to believe them. So if I played with a guy like Davy Hay, who continued to talk about the good things in life and absolutely ignored all the negativity, imagine how good that is for your self-esteem and for your confidence.
Yeah.
But see, as much as you like talking yourself down in a jocular way and having a laugh and a carry on, that season 81-82, when you were a young player, a dynamic winger who had been nominated as Player of the Year, was there any whisper of a move or anything like that? Because we were still a first division team.
There was. Chelsea and Leeds had came in at one stage, and Ali MacLeod and Davy Hay took me aside and said, "You'll read in the newspapers that there's £100,000 offer coming in for you down south, but it's all just hearsay, so don't let this affect you." And I don't think I kicked a fucking boss since.
I thought you were going to say when they said there's a bid coming in, but you're not good enough. So, so just forget about it.
Roughie, you know it all too well, don't you?
I've been there. We've all been there before because we never had agents. Well, it was just a telephone call. No, see you later.
Yeah. Did you get tapped up? He was obviously given the nod and the wink. Did somebody say to you, "Look, we're going to come in for you"?
No, nothing like that. But the non-agent thing's really interesting, because there's another chance for young men to be totally manipulated by intimidation tactics. You know, as was quite the norm. And when I signed from Shettleston Juniors for Motherwell, the signing on fee was £750 tax free.
Yeah.
But I never got that. It was about a year later that £600 get paid into my wages. So it ended up £600 taxed and no £750 tax free. I know that sounds...
But a lot of the time,
sounds so trivial compared to what the money that's going about just now.
God, yeah.
But it's just a wee example as to how they squeeze every last wee drop out you.
Yeah.
And when I signed with Motherwell, initially the basic wage was £80 per week, £10 expenses.
What age were you then?
But 19, 20. I was a late coming into the game.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm 20, 21 even.
Uh-huh.
But as the years went by, that money disappeared. So the appearance money and the expenses all disappeared. So 5 years later, you were actually on less money. And then go way forward 10, 15 years. Morton did the exact same. When I joined Morton, there was appearance money, there was expenses, there was...
And that 50,000 you got, did you declare that?
That's an interesting point, because I actually got a signing on fee from Morton, but which I never ever got a signing on fee. After that initial signing with Motherwell, I never ever got another signing on fee.
Yeah.
In fact, from 1981 to 1989, I think it was, I was on the same basic wage for about 7 or 8 years.
That's incredible, isn't it?
And I don't think people will forget, Peter, is that, and I wonder if this has happened at a higher level, but in fact a day I can remember when it did, but Johnny of course scored for Morton against Motherwell in our cup run. He ironically could have put the death knell in us winning the Scottish Cup that year, because he scored against us. What was I know you could easily say, oh well, total professional, delighted to score for the team, it was paying my wages, but in any shape or form, did you have mixed feelings that day?
No mixed feelings at all. Wanted to win. Still had the dream of going to Hampden, which I'd never done in a cup final as such. So Motherwell were just another obstacle.
Aye.
But Cooper, in an interview before the game, had spoke about Morton's winger Gahagan being an ex-Motherwell player, and he's a good boy and he can play a wee bit, but we've got a guy to take care of him, he said, who was Luke Nyholt at the time.
Right.
So there was another inspiration for me to ram that one back.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, Motherwell were horrendous in both games. They played terrible at Fir Park. They were lucky to survive. We missed a header with 5 minutes to go to win the game. In the replay, Motherwell's goal was a fluke when I think it was Mark Pickering tried to clear the ball and it hit Tam Boyd in the head and went into the net.
Yeah.
And Morton played well, and Motherwell and Cooper were poor that night.
Yeah, did you play well?
I thought I played well,
yeah.
And it wasn't me that limped to Capello that night after 120 minutes. It was Luke Nyholt. Well, I'm not being funny.
Yeah.
I gave him a fucking torrid time. And there was no, to answer your question, Tam, no.
Aye.
But obviously, now that Motherwell were through,
aye, that's who you were cheering for.
I wished them. And as you know, the rest is history. The amazing games against Celtic in the semi-finals, and then one of the best ever cup finals of all time. And people say to me, when Motherwell won that cup, that magnificent game, and it was mind it was called the Family Cup final because it was the McLeans.
Yeah.
And it was a sadness as well because Tommy and Jim had lost their own dad, I think, that week. So they were in mourning. There was a wee bit of humaneness came into it all. And people said, when you seen them going up the steps, did you have a wee... And I thought, did I fuck? I'd waited 11 years for that moment. And I mean this, I'd waited 11 fucking years to get up these steps to get my hand in that cup. And Tommy McLean had kicked me out the door. And do you really think I sat and thought, oh, that could have been me? No, I didn't.
Did you have a chance to stay?
Didn't I? No chance. No. It's not a nice story.
No.
But mine's was probably gentler than other guys. Tommy McLean told me one day Cooper had been suspended at the start of the season, so I got in against Celtic. Motherwell beat Celtic 2-0. I made one of the goals, helped one of the goals in for Russell. And after that game, McLean told me, Alan McGraw at Morton wants to speak to you. And I said, there's no point because I want to stay at Motherwell. And he says, but he's a lovely man. He's just out of common courtesy. Speak to the guy, because he might make you an offer at your stage in your life. You might. But anyway, I spoke to McGraw and I told him, I says, I'm not interested.
Aye.
I wanted to meet you. I told you're a nice guy and you are. Blah, blah. And I went back and told Tommy McLean. And that weekend, that midweek, we played Clyde in the Cup. Cooper was back in, I was back in the bench. We beat Clyde 2-0. And after that game, after the directors had came and shook my hand on the bus, here you want to stay, all that shite. Very good, great, loyalty, all that fucking rubbish. McLean came back and said, McGraw wants to meet you again. He's going to make you an offer you can't refuse.
Wow.
But we went through all the palavers, and what's the point? How embarrassing is this? Because when I met them again and they told me what their offer was, I said no. I want to stay with Motherwell. So I went back and went into Tommy McLean's office, and he said to me, how did you get on? And I told him, thanked him for his offer, and I told him I want to play out the rest of my days here at Fir Park. And he says, you're fucking finished. You'll no fucking kick another ball here, you fucking cunt. We need 20 grand to get Joe McLeod, and you're fucking at the door. You're way down the pecking order. You'll never play for this club again. What you fucking do? All that style.
Aye.
And I thought, what is this?
Aye.
I mean, I was shocked.
So there was clearly going to be a transfer fee involved, and he was wanting his money, his hands on
said
that
to him,
money.
why did you not tell me that in the first place?
Aye.
I says, no, I don't want to play for you. No, the only guy that wants me to play for him's McGraw, and I've already told him I don't want to fucking go there.
Yeah.
I says, get on the phone. We got on the phone right there, and I says, I'll come down and meet you, I'll sign for you. I'll come and sign for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
As long as that signing on fee's tax free.
Yeah.
And that get way back round to what you initially said. There was a signing on fee, but all it was for was to bolster the poor wage.
Yeah.
The wage was £80 a week. My wage at that time had gone up to £250. The basic wage had gone up to at Motherwell.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest it had ever been in my life. But they'd also put the winning bonus up to £400. And there was an appearance money of £100. So if you were in a winning team, you were earning quite good money.
Yeah, at that time.
And the McLean philosophy, sorry for rabbiting on,
No,
but
it's good.
I
It's good to hear it.
I did agree with that great philosophy. Keep the basic wage low, then reward guys for getting in the squad, reward them again for getting in the team, and then the only big money you're going to get is for winning a game. So you had to play and you had to win to get good money. None of this shite about sitting with 20 grand and you've done fuck all.
Yeah.
Where's the incentive in that? Where the fuck does that going to get you in life?
Yeah, it's a great point actually, because I had remember we had Morris.
Sorry for swearing.
No, don't worry about that. By the way, remember we had Morris Malpass in, and Morris Malpass said they were on. I mean, he said a basic wage that was absolutely rank rotten. He says, but the bonus was so good. He says we were out battering teams every week. And by the way, talking about injuries, they had a squad. Some people say that Dundee United won the league with just 14 players. They didn't. They won it with a bigger squad than that. But of that squad that wasn't huge, everybody wanted to play, John. They didn't want to give it up, you know.
The thing with the win bonuses, the best one I ever heard was when we had Emlyn Hughes, the late great Emlyn Hughes, as a guest on a show, and he told us that when he was at his time at Liverpool, when there was some new directors come in, one guy thought he had a brainwave in terms of guaranteeing results in the pitch, that the win bonus would basically double week after week if you won, you know. Now, there's an old thing that you may even remember from school, where if you gave you a single grain of sand and you put it in the bottom left square of a chessboard and you doubled the numbers all the way around until you got to the last square diagonally opposite the chessboard, there wouldn't be enough grains of sand in the world to do the final sum.
Right.
And this is the way that Liverpool were looking to operate their win bonus. This is a team with Emlyn Hughes and with Toshak and with Kevin Keegan and all these other great names. And Emlyn was saying that within about 4 or 5 weeks, maybe even if it was starting at a £5 bonus, it was a tenner, 20, 40, 80, you know. Within 4 or 5 weeks, Emlyn says there were 2 resignations on on the Liverpool board for all the fucking flack they were getting for the rest of the guys on that board, you know. But I mean, that was a dangerous way to get down. But I totally agree. I mean, you're right with Maurice Malpass. I've heard him telling that as well. You know, if you can give the players an incentive. Now, it's one thing saying, which is why I always think Jim McLean get slightly a hard time for it, for the legendary or slightly disingenuous 18-year contracts with a 15-year option and all that.
Yeah.
Because there are, in terms of security, I'm sure there might have been a few players who actually fancied that at the time. You know, when you look to everywhere in life now, not just footballers, and folk getting 6-month contracts at their work, or 0 hours, to use that modern phrase, you know.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a joke, you know. So as much as Jim McLean got hammered for his long contracts, I'm sure some folk would have liked him, but by the same token, Johnny's absolutely right. When you see famously, who was the guy at Man City that didn't want to go in as a sub?
Oh,
Too much money.
Tevez.
Right. You know, no incentive. He thinks, you know what, I don't care, they can shout at me, swear at me all they want, I can take all the flack I want for the fans, but right after this I'm driving to the nearest cash line, putting in my number and seeing what my balance is. Yeehaw. You know, no incentive at all.
Absolutely. And you've just encapsulated what Roughie's all about these days. Wouldn't that be
It's
great,
the same
Roughie?
in here, you know, you get a fee for the Monday, fee for and then in the close season you don't get in.
No, a single win bonus. He keeps gloating about where it is in the podcast chart. No, that we would know.
I've got to ask you this, and this is the point. Who did you respond to better? A manager who would, you know, as John mentioned there, Davy Hay, who would look for the positives, look for the training, look for the ball, or which one really kind of almost de-incentivised you?
No, if it was somebody who was going to be start bawling and shouting at me in front of 15 guys, then I wasn't the person you could be shouting at, because I just got into a shell.
Yeah.
I never ever understood how you come in at half time and there'd be 16 guys sitting there and the manager would pick somebody and actually slaughter them. I mean, tear him to shreds in front of 15 his pals and expect him to go out in the second half and then go, oh, I better turn it on here.
Yeah.
For me, that is it's an opposite reaction. That, from my point of view, is I don't think anybody bawling and shouting at me is going to make me play any better. It's going to make me be panicking, because if I go out in the second half and have another nightmare, I'm in trouble here.
That must be the benefit, if you like. Fans keep hearing of the good cop, bad cop managerial partnerships. You know. Now at that time with Davy Hay, as much as I know Davy Hay, quiet assassin and all the rest of it, but was it Frank Connor? It was with Davy Hay that year, aye?
No, Connor came in with Jock Wallace.
It was a boy, who was it originally with Davy Hay?
It was Cammy Murray and a boy, Jim McFadden were...
And was the
It
Celtic?
was mostly Hay.
Was the Celtic boy
He
not
did
there?
it on his own.
What'd you call it? Connor?
Frank
That's what
Connor.
we're talking about.
Said,
No,
Frank
but
Connor came in
he was his
afterwards.
assistant.
No.
Jock Wallace.
Jock
Frank
Wallace.
in as his
Have you met
assistant.
Tam, by the way? Tam
How you
Tam
doing?
does
Yeah,
that
It's
at
a
dinner
different
circuit.
story he was telling.
Now, here's a question on the point of when you're talking about the move and you didn't want to go. Was there a time when you were playing in the Motherwell side and you watched other players make that jump or that big move and you thought, wait a minute, I'm better than him?
No, never.
No?
I was happy at Motherwell.
Yeah.
Nobody could ever understand that. In fact, both Tommy McLean and Tam Forsyth actually questioned my ambition. How can you fathom that one out? That I was happy to stay with that club.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
What was it about them?
What was it about?
Motherwell.
Well, that had been my dream since I was about 10 years old, to play there. And I just loved being about the place. I loved pulling the strip on. I loved playing.
And at that time, Johnny,
all the boys.
You had watched what was happening at the club.
Does that sound so daft?
No, because you'd watched what was happening round about you and the level of player that was coming in.
Aye.
I would have said starting with the likes of Bobby Russell in 86, who was a class act,
What
often
a
forgotten
player.
about at Motherwell, because in 89 suddenly with the arrival of the great Davy Cooper. But you were obviously seeing this happening round about you. Why would you want to leave, Bonkers to even think that.
I loved being there. I loved watching the young boys who were very talented coming in and then going on to great careers. And I also loved when we sold these boys off, we would have to replace them, and usually it would be with an older guy near the end of his career, or maybe even past his sell-by date. But guys who'd played like Shuggy at Valson, Tam McAdam, great professionals with a great winning mentality.
Tam McAdam had a great goal scoring rate as well.
Bobby Russell was magnificent. He was up there with Cooper, I would say, And Brian McLaughlin, who in the early 1980s was to Motherwell in the first division, what Cooper had been to Motherwell in the Premier League.
Yep.
Only Motherwell fans will realise this, or the guys who played against McLaughlin, because he was sensational.
And joy of joys, we had that night in October 1989 where we suddenly had Russell and Cooper. They were in the same team. They had formed that wee partnership
Awesome.
that they had at Rangers for many a year, and it all just clicked into place one midweek night. We beat Rangers 1-0. It was a wee 1-2 between Cooper and Russell, and for Motherwell fans to wake up the next day, God, I could almost greet thinking about it. You saw the back page of the papers, and we were actually sitting top of the league deep into October, which is, a good chunk of the season is already over, and it was amazing. We were spoilt rotten. See, we guys like that in the team don't realise it now. Some of the stuff, no harm to the guys at Motherwell have done really well in recent years for a club our size and go to cup finals and all the rest of it when we've got 3,000 season ticket holders. But in terms of the actual individual and collective quality of those players out on the park, that period at Fir Park, late 80s, we were spoilt rotten.
And
Spoilt rotten.
with that in mind then, how does it make you feel knowing you're in the greatest ever Motherwell team? It's a night that Tam and I were lucky.
Still shiver thinking about it.
I shouldn't be in it. I shouldn't be in it. And we know I should not be in that. The only reason I got in that was because for all the years that I had been away from Motherwell, I had stayed in the public eye through the after dinner circuit.
Yeah.
And I had always still had a loyalty towards Motherwell Football Club, and I did loads of things for the club and for their fans. No half as much as Tam has done.
Yeah.
And Tam's, as you know, has done it for other Hearts and Dundee, and with his generosity for things. So my name was always in people's heads. That was the only reason.
Yeah.
But as far as quality players
That
go,
must be why Shuggy Naismith got into the greatest ever team as well then, is it?
you know what I mean?
You're underselling it a wee bit though.
Aye.
No, but take it.
Tam's at left back.
Oh, see, that night, Roughie, you'd be glad that you weren't there. Me and Peter co-hosted it. It was on a kind of stage platform thing facing the south stand. And as much as the sun was shining at the start of the night and it was a blue sky, it was absolutely Baltic. And all I can remember, they had tried at the club to get a couple of faces along, right, just to make it a wee bit glitzy. And I can still mind looking out. Me and Peter did it as a running gag. We were finding coats and everything for everywhere because they were all sat there in their finery and we were saying, fuck this, it's freezing, right? And we're up next to the big heated lamps and all that on the stage, but I still mind looking out, Peter, and Blythe Duff.
I knew you were going to say this.
Taggart fame. She had come thinking she was going to the Oscars, right? She was absolutely dolled up for the night in the wee summer sandals and a lovely wee light frock and all that. And she's sitting there blue with a cold, you know, and it was awful. A lesson learnt that night about a venue.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have a stab at this, right? But Tam Boyd's in it. Joe Wark's in it.
Yep.
The boy Peyton. Yep,
aye.
who's in it.
Davy White.
Coop's in it.
Andy Reid, Whiteford, get in it.
Yourself.
Pettigrew,
Wally Pettigrew had to be in it.
Cooper.
Bobby Graham.
No.
No, that's a thing. No, he didn't get in it. No.
There was actually 12 guys ended up Tam Boyd was in there, and there was, if you actually see the team, well, they put the team out with these superimposed faces on an old Motherwell strip, you know.
Yeah.
So there was an old Motherwell team 40 for the past, and then superimposed the heads of the
That's right.
The actual team who were selected, and I had the biggest head, which was quite appropriate because when I got in, my head was fucking yawn size. But that always made me laugh. But when I think of the players who played with Motherwell, who were just magnificent, but they never maybe spent more than 3 or 4 years with Motherwell.
Yeah.
Aye.
Do you think that maybe worked in your favour as well?
Of course it
Got a
did.
testimonial, you know, so
Yeah.
fans always remember that stuff.
Absolutely.
See, when I think of the players who left while I was there, like Brian McClare,
Yep.
Gary McAllister, Ali Mauchline, Stuart Rafferty, Andy Walker,
Wish up.
Tam Boyd, Fraser Wishart, Nicky Walker, Ali Max, all these boys. Phil O'Donnell went on to be sold. And that was just in my time. And then even when I'm at Morton, I know I say this in the circuit, but there was McInnes and Reid and Hopkin and Lilly and Mahood. Oh, magnificent boys, great athletes.
Yeah.
And wow,
I know you.
privileged. Tam said privileged, so you take it for granted, you know. So when Rangers in their spell with David Murray and Souness had Gascoigne and Laudrup and Butcher and Stephen and Stevens, all these Trevor Francis, these superstars, they start to take it for granted.
Aye.
But later on you look back and think how privileged you were. Larson, Sutton, Moravchik,
Yeah.
you know, how privileged. And I think Rangers will look back and think how privileged they were to have Gary McAllister and Stephen Gerrard in charge of this wee spell. I think they've done fantastic. But the Rangers mentality is such that you want to be winning everything.
Yeah.
But with their budget and with their shuffling the pack, as they call it, and their wheeling and dealing in the loan market as they've got to do, their run in Europe has been miraculous.
Yeah. Can I ask you this? When you were you
I'm allowed to mention Rangers in this show.
Yeah, you can mention Rangers if you want. We had Dean Durant and Andy Cameron waxing lyrical about them
Absolutely.
for the entire show, which is great.
And John Ayres right where he says fans sometimes, you know, don't realise just what they've got, because even fairly recently, when we were 4-1 down at half time against St Mirren, right? And I couldn't believe my ears when I actually heard the fans booing really, really vociferously, you know,
Yeah.
really, really loud. And I thought, wait a minute, we're actually right. We might be 4-1 down at half time. Turns out we came back to 4 each and we're only beaten by a penalty shootout. But we're 4-1 down, but we're sitting here, we're third in the league as we were at that present time. And you're thinking, calm down. I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing to suggest that a year, 2 years from now that Motherwell could find themselves a lower league team. When you look at the size of the club, you look at the budgets, you look at the number of season ticket holders, there's no doubt that we could end up down there. And then we'll look back to the present times and think, wow, we were again spoiled rotten.
I know, but sometimes though, you know, and
Spoiled
I'm not dismissing some fans the right to boo. Everybody's got the right to boo.
Well, it's
But-
part of the game,
but
absolutely.
You know, sometimes though, I have to say, you know, Gordon Strachan used to go mental at me, and he'd go, you do that phone in for Radio Clyde. He said, so if two people phone in and say I'm an arsehole, does that mean I'm an arsehole?
Aye.
You know what I mean? He says it's not a reflection of the overall feeling of the majority. You can't speak, you know, two people can't necessarily speak for the majority. You're right. Once you get the bigger picture on things.
Aye.
I was just wondering, were you funny when you were younger?
No, funny, you mean ha-ha or funny in the head?
No, were you funny? Let's start with funny ha-ha.
We know the answer to the head one.
Yeah,
aye.
but what about the funny ha-has? Were you,
I had a great imagination.
yeah. Did you get on with all your mates at school and that? Were you?
No, I had hardly any mates.
Is that
I was very withdrawn. Some
Yeah?
people thought I had special needs. Some people thought
Yeah?
I was...
were you a quiet, shy
right in the
guy?
head. Oh, God. So withdrawn you couldn't believe it.
Is that right?
But the great escape was the world of football. Ever since I can remember, that was the great escape. This lassie's want to pull a halt.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask you.
Cheryl.
Yeah, that's Cheryl. She's chatting to us there. She wants to get into the meat and bones of other things, which is Roughie. I was going to ask you, what were you like when you were younger?
At school?
Yeah.
I was quite quiet as well.
Were you?
Aye.
You go to school?
Aye. I was in
I didn't know. Genuinely didn't know.
John, I think it's John that tells a story that I'm sure it's John, the classroom they put me in was right next to the football park.
Yeah.
So all I did was look out the window all day. I didn't want to be in the class. I wanted to be out there, seeing all the other classes getting the PE. You know, and in the first year I was at school way back then, we used to get 16 periods of PE a week. And then the next year it was down to 12, and then the next year it was down to 4, and I went, I'm out of here. You know, because that's all I lived for, was the PE. You know, I wasn't intelligent, I wasn't clever.
Yeah.
I never went to the academic class, but and unfortunately, Knightswood was sort of bordering with a place called Temple.
Yeah.
Which was a really rough area, and we'd half our class for Temple, so they were all nutcases.
Yeah.
No, they used to have like the woodwork teacher.
I was
up
on the periphery of Temple.
Aye, they were up. I remember getting into woodwork class one day, and they had the teacher up on the table, getting up me dancing with chisels.
Sounds like a war dance.
It's scary, absolutely scary.
It's strange how something though that you're good at can suddenly give you the confidence though. And it brings me nicely to the after dinner. When I first met you, I mean, I don't even know at what stage I first met you on the circuit and how many years you've been speaking, but you were like a bag of nerves. And then suddenly it was almost as if somebody turned on a switch, and then you were off.
Psycho. It's a form of schizophrenia. You have to conjure up something for deep inside to take over. Some guys are natural, like yourself. And like Tam, natural enthusiasts for what you do, also linked in with a great talent, which some people don't realise that's what it is for this game. There's a talent, kind of artistry in it. Roughie, I feel's got the schizophrenia about him, because I really do believe there is a deeper side.
Yeah.
And then we've got the performer.
Yeah,
coming for Roughie as well.
I never like to ever contest in. Sometimes we'll sit down at a dinner and we'll argue over certain things. But you're 100% wrong with Roughie. He's so shallow. Defies belief. He's one-dimensional. Schizophrenia suggests there's another side to you which could potentially be deeper. There's none. There's none with him. He's just got that. I mean, we're in the depths of despair the other week there about Andy Ritchie, who says at 26, I'm going to chuck the game. And I says, Roughie, did you think you were going to chuck the game at 26? And he said, no, I was going out to Miss United Kingdom. I didn't see any real need. So, Andy Ritchie, bang.
Johnny, can you remember your first ever dinner that you spoke at?
Aye, it was in the Pit Bockley Hotel in Dunfermline.
How did it go?
It wasn't a full speech as such. I was to make an apology for Alan McGraw, who had been initially booked to speak at the dinner, and he asked if I would go along and make an apology on his behalf. And Jim Leishman was the main speaker, and there was a Fife comic called Jack Dougarry who played the banjo and told the gags, and they were the entertainment. So I spoke for 5 or 10 minutes, made an apology on McGraw's behalf, and I thought that was the end of it. But Jim Leishman said to me afterwards, you've got something, you've got a wee way about telling a story, and it's quite funny. I think you would do well on the circuit. And to cut a long story short, it sprung for there. As the months and the years went by, Big Leish would bring me into certain wee dinners, and I got to see all the brilliant boys and how they performed, and knew what worked and seen what didn't work, and started to take it on board and worked away at my craft, because I wasn't natural. So if you're not a natural, you need to really work at it, as some football players will know. Some guys are so beautifully talented.
Anybody in particular who got you gigs? No, any particular person on the circuit? You threw your name out there and said you were available.
You're such a moron.
Not even any commission, no. Which you're maybe wanting now.
But that's how it went.
Yeah.
And listen, see, in terms of audiences, because Johnny, we've been blowing some smoke up Johnny's backside, and he's been getting it back. Why don't we go around the sofa, right, and just the worst ever audience? which basically sometimes means the worst ever that one of us has ever been. Peter,
Well,
the audience that just didn't go for you at all, who would that be?
St Andrew's Boxing Club, and absolutely.
See, nobody ever forgets.
No, you never forget. And the reason why I remember it so well is, Tommy Gilmour's a great lad, but he kept asking me to it, and I thought, right, you know what I'm like? I'm not a joke teller, so I don't tell jokes. So basically, I go up there and I look and I scan the audience and I look for their Achilles heel, and then I try and annihilate them. So the St Andrews Boxing Club, you're at a disadvantage right away, because I think most of them are there to see the boxing, and if you start wobbling on and start chatting about stuff, you can tell right away. And the other thing about it is, I can walk into a room and sense people who just hate you for being you. So I stood up that night, I'll never forget it. Derek Johnston, Hugh Keevans and Oni Coyle were there, and we'd all been invited, but I'd been invited to host it. Well, honestly, 3 minutes into it, silence, tumbleweed, right? So I thought, I am dying on my arse here, right? So eventually I thought, I've got to persevere, so I just kept leathering them. And it was going nowhere, John. And all I could see was my phone buzzing, and Oni Coyle, first of all, get off, you're rotten. And then DJ's coming through, and Keevans is going, cut it short while you're still ahead. And at the end of it, I sat down and I thought, oh, absolute nightmare. And the funny thing is, you and I, John, have always chatted to each other and said, we'll text each other if we ever die in our back end. But that one sticks in my head, and I thought to myself, never again.
Right, Ruffy, your turn next.
Mine, I never
just one.
Mine's was my worst one was the businessman of Kirkcaldy. No other dinner suits on, no other chain mail and everything. It was me and Doddy Weir.
All right.
And the boy came up at the beginning and went, look guys, it's a tight gig here tonight because it's just tradition. At the end of the gig we play cards. So he says we need to be finished pretty sharpish. So Doddy gets up and does about 45 minutes and things drag on and everything, and the place is in complete darkness. And I'd get up and I just started to tell a couple of the first gags, and there was none. Absolutely nothing. And in a deadly silence, all I heard was, I've got a pile of threes, what have you got? They were all playing cards up the back.
It's your worst. Tam?
There's two I still have a cold shiver about on a weekly basis. First one, it was in the Fairmont Hotel in St Andrews, and I thought this was going to be a scoosh because I had been asked to do a Q&A. Now, we've all seen the former footballers when they get asked to do that, and you think, shoot it, and they just need to sit there and field the questions, But I think it was for the TUC or something. They'd been having a conference up there, and I was the bit of entertainment on the third and final day, right? But the questions that started off, I says, right, boys, they'd left me to it. It wasn't MD MCing it or anything. It was just, right, Tam, when you go, you do the Q&A now. And I'm like, right, you can ask men you want, right? Now, I knew it was going to get off to a bad start when genuinely I says, right, who's got the first question? And one guy down the front, he said, who won the FA Cup in 1938? And I says, it's not a fucking quiz. It's not a Q&A like that. I think that was a memory man for the 39 steps or something. I says, no, if you want to ask men about the BBC or about the radio, the telly, newspapers, on you go, right? But it was just one of the things where every question that got asked, I just couldn't think of an amusing or even a half amusing anecdote or answer. It was just a wall went up, and it got to the stage where, and I saluted her and I bought her a drink when we went up to the bar. I says, right, come on, it was about 45 minutes, the longest 45 minutes of my life. And I says, right, do we have any other questions, And I'm like, this is awful. And there was a one wee woman right up the back, and she very gingerly put her hand up, right, 78 if she was a day. Excuse me, I have a question. And I said, oh yes. I'm like, here we go, finishing a high note because we've introduced an old dear and this will be good and I'll get everybody on my side. And I says, what is your question then, darling? And she says, would you mind terribly if we all fucked off to the bar? And I thought, brilliant. I went in laughing up the stairs, and I did indeed buy her a drink. Another one, the one that was just, hopeless. And then we'll leave it to you, Johnny. But the Brigadoon Hotel in Alloway, Ayrshire. Yeah. It was Hogmanay do. And I had been booked to have, and I quote, to take a wry look back on the year that's nearly finished, right? That was my booking. They had read me in the paper, they'd seen me in the telly, on the radio, and they thought, we'll get Tam to just look back at all the events of the year before we get into the new year. And when I'm doing to this, you're talking about the dicky bows and the chainmail and all that stuff, you know what I mean? It was just that everywhere, right? It was a really, really posh part of town. And the thing I always remembered, but they later gave me great advice, 2 folk that had been invited, and they sat them at our table with me, my wife, and my wife's mum and dad, were the Crankies. Ian and Jeanette, right? They were invited for some reason, and it was panto season for them. They'd probably just finished, and they got an invite down. They sat with us, so it was great, and we were having a rare tear the whole night until I got asked to go up and do my bit. Now, the way that I'd approached this was thinking, right, I looked back at the year, I thought, great, there's always the jokes and everything that you can't get away with in the paper, that you've always got in reserve for a private audience. There's the ones that come into the radio that are crackers for the listeners that you think, oh, I'll tuck that by, I can't use it in the radio, etc., etc. I'd spent ages bundling all these together, realised with hindsight it was maybe more for a working man's club's kind of audience, you know what I mean? But here it was all the folk out in their finery and Alloway and Ayrshire, and I went up and I did this bit to fucking silence, deafening, horrible sounds. That way when your throat goes on dry, your lips, look at that, you can't even say the words, and there's no a drink for miles or anything, you know. I know I went off and it was awful, and the Crankies were pissing themselves at me. They were loving it, right? And they said, and I've always remembered 2 great bits of advice that I had in my life. First one was for Frank Carson, who said to me the night we had him on a show with us, he says, Tam, when you're not working, work on your act. Don't get idle, right? If you're not working, for the Saturday night, maybe we've not got a booking to go to a do, why not do a wee bit of work on your act? You know what I mean? Great bit of advice that I never forgot. And the Crankies that night said to me, and I've always tried to keep it in mind since, wear the right hat for the right job. And that night I wasn't wearing the right hat for the right job, and I've remembered it ever since. I've tried to.
Before you say, John, tell them that night you booked me.
Oh, John. So, this is your worst nightmare, and I know you don't like this, right? So, Roughie says to me, I said, there's a guy who's he's not going to make this dinner in Wishaw, Cambusnethan. Not going to make it. So Roughie's agreed with the boy, look, I'm appearing here, but I'll come and do a doubler, right? So sure as fate, Roughie decides to pitch in, and there's me and this other guy speaking, and he gets up and speaks, and I says, look, Roughie's coming to do a doubler. And I'd said to the entire audience, Roughie's doing a doubler. There's nothing more moronic than somebody doing a doubler. It means that you're second best. So he's coming to get another wage. And I says, no, I know him. I said, the one thing he doesn't like is people no laughing. I said, so I'd prepped the whole audience, John, to honour them. I said, first gag, don't laugh. Second one, definitely don't laugh. Keep a straight face, everybody. Well, in he comes, right? Now, here's the worst thing, John. You ever open the door and 200 people are booing? So they're all booing him, right? Because he's coming for a doubler. So he then gets up and he does his first gag. Silence. By the time he gets to the third, I can see the bead of sweat coming down the left hand
drink anywhere. I couldn't get a drink.
So he's done the fourth gag, and eventually he's looking, and he can just see a wee smirk in somebody's face, and he just turns around to me and went, "You are a bastard." So, John.
Oh, I can't talk that. I have spoken at dinners where nobody's prepped the audience, and there's still just no laugh.
But if you know guys have taken their jacket off, coming to want a fight and all that, where was that?
Yep, I've had all sorts. But I think the worst ones is when it's out your control. If the microphone's dead, or if there's a fight in the audience, or if the behaviour's bad because of drink, and it's when it's out your control, that's scary.
Yeah.
But for a professional point of view, if the order's good and you're not getting a response, that's quite traumatic.
Which reminds me nicely of the that's the type of thing I remember about you. Always liked, a good sound system, as we all do.
Absolutely.
And John and I were doing a gig in Paisley, and we turned up. Do you remember the old rack hi-fis you used to get? The old 1980s ones, and they had a wee LED light that flashed across the front of it. He turns up. There's only one speaker, and they've plugged a wee Fisher Price microphone into the speaker of this hi-fi system. And he looked at me, and I could tell right away. I thought, he is fizzing. It was the worst ever, wasn't it?
Do you remember doing it at Troon Town Hall? It was a great night. They all enjoyed it, loved it. But they did one of these stupid competitions, the best ever Scotland team, and they go to John to pick it. They don't want to kill him at the end because they're all getting knocked out. The first player really knocked out the whole room.
The feeling, wasn't it? The feeling was scary. In fact, it reached a stage where, when I was speaking, and it wasn't going well because they were still holding a grudge, and a guy walked by and went to the toilet, and when he came out the toilet, he walked by and he stopped and he looked up and said, "Are you still fucking on?" I went and sat down. But the sound systems. An agent booked me to do a gig in Leeds once. And I went down, I was introduced, it was the dance floor scenario. Well, there's an empty dance floor, the microphone, and the audience are round the periphery. And I got out and I tried to speak, and a lassie shouted, "We can't hear you." So and I said, "Can anybody hear me?" And I walked right out without the microphone and shouted, "Can anybody hear a word I'm saying?" "Can't hear you, pal." So I went back and I shouted, "It's all over," and I walked out the room.
All right.
And I got a phone call the next day for the agent saying, "What are you fucking doing? You fucking unprofessional cunt. You fucking stand there, even if the microphone's not working, and you fucking boop, 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 boop for 20 minutes so you can get the fucking money. You're a fucking unprofessional cunt." And I says to him, "Listen to this, mate. Are you listening to me? Listen." I said, "See your phone me now." And he said, "What are you saying?" I said, "Exactly." I put the phone down. And I'm not kidding.
You used to like doing it Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock was a big gig for you.
Sir John Orr, who's... Anyway, we can't get into that.
No.
I don't want you to get sued.
All right, okay, but listen, I've enjoyed that. Just before we finish, I've got to ask you, who
started you?
Who did you like as a comedian that you thought, I could listen to them, I could watch them? I don't mean in our circuit, I just mean in general, somebody that you thought, I love watching them.
Like dead or alive, who would you like? A golden ticket for the now to sit in the front row?
I like guys that when people are just out for a good night, they got the ability to make a whole room laugh. Yeah. You've got it, Roughie's got it, Tam Cowan's got it, Joe Cammy, Jimmy Sterling, these guys, Willie Young, Jaws McNeil, they're going a storm just now. They've got the ability just to make people laugh. Scott Glynn had it, our great pal who passed away. Stuart Cool had it. So that ability, when I was a wee boy, folk could go on, even like Ken Dodd, Tam mentioned Frank Carson, Tommy Cooper, who could make you laugh without even talking.
Yep.
These type of folk. But as I got older and looked back, who was the guy with the baldy head and the...
Max Wall,
he's funny.
Yeah,
right.
He's funny because he was visual, he had a great voice, a fantastic style. Some guys have got a great style about them, which you don't realise when you're young, but once you get into this game and you look back and you think, wow. Bob Monkhouse I didn't like. I thought he was a sleazy, pandering, but I could see why he was great for TV.
Yeah.
The same as Michael McIntyre is great for TV, but I wouldn't pay to go and see him at a concert.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a certain skill that transfers over.
Yeah, they've got skills which are required. I've not got a skill for this. Yeah. See, sitting here talking to you guys, I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And just as my cycle guy was fucking coming through, Cheryl decides it's time to wrap it.
Well, I have to tell you, we enjoyed it because that's the good thing about it. You get to see a side of somebody that you don't often see. You get to pick their brains. And I can't let you go without saying, we talked about your great teams.
I never spoke about them.
Who was the best player that you loved playing with?
Cooper was amazing.
Yeah.
I thought he was finished because he wasn't in Rangers' first team. He came to Motherwell for 50 grand. I seen him in training the first day and my jaw dropped. And I was like that every day that Cooper was at Motherwell. That's how good he was, and I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Brian McLaughlin, the early 1980s, he was just as talented. Bobby Russell was just as talented.
Yeah.
But Cooper was awesome.
Fantastic.
That's
And-
why
Other end of the spectrum, and nae harm to him if he's tuned in, but I didn't know that story. But Motherwell fans will be aghast to think that we lost Johnny so we could get the money to give us Joe McLeod, who his own admission was hopeless at Fir Park.
But it's not Joe's fault.
Oh, I know it's not.
Joe was also a guy who wasn't getting a game at Dundee United, so he knows the traumas of that, of how your form can suffer, your psychology can suffer, your well-being can suffer. There's times where you're almost in a depression, no playing the game, but looking for something within you to continue this journey. So I'm not having a go at Joe McLeod. I'm just thinking that buying a substitute to replace a substitute didn't make any fucking sense, because the substitute they already had was dedicated to the club. So why bring in a substitute who's no fucking dedicated to the club?
Yeah, no, you're
and
right.
I could understand McLean's thinking. McLean was a good coach. He knew the game. He was. It was almost an education at times playing under that guy.
Yeah.
So I'm not having a go at him. He's seen that I was losing pace. There was the quality wasn't what was required.
Yeah.
But of course, he never ever got that until Cooper arrived.
Yeah.
And Cooper was a fucking superstar.
Yeah.
Where else are you going to get a superstar for 50 grand? That was the greatest bit of business that Motherwell ever did.
Yeah.
The Ibrox demise. I mean, what a loss to Rangers. I don't care how many superstars they had. Is that how good their team was, that they could get rid of a guy like Cooper?
Davy Cooper would have told you the same thing happened to him at Rangers as what happened to you. He was just called in and went, that's it.
Well, imagine a guy of Cooper's ability sitting in the reserves or sitting on the bench.
It'd be a waste.
And last night we're sitting watching guys like Gareth Bale and running up and down the touchline, and Aguero running up and down the touchline. Jesus, what is happening in this world where you've got guys like that on the bench?
Yeah. One particular game that sticks in your mind that's your favourite before we finish? Is there one that you think it was just magic?
Nah.
None?
Nah. There was so many.
Yeah. Which is a good thing.
So many. I remember making my debut and pulling the Motherwell strip on for the first time and thinking, wow, this is amazing. And
Best goal's an easy one.
And this isn't an after dinner story. This is true. When the day I signed for Motherwell, I walked out onto Fir Park. I really did. And I walked out onto the pitch, and this is true. It's not an after dinner tale. And I just stood and looked about, because I had been there on the terraces, not that stand, as a young boy, and I just breathed it in. And I used to tell the story that I could feel the atmospheres and the ghosts for the past, you know. And then I did hear a voice, and I really did hear a voice saying to me, "Get off that fucking park." It was
the boy with
it was Andy Russell.
The boy with the Alsatian.
Andy Russell, the groundsman. And that's a true story.
Yeah. And what's your best goal? Because Tam seems to think you'll know it right away.
There was a volley
Against
Celtic midweek.
Yeah.
How far out was it?
Belter.
We were miles out.
It was just outside the 18-yard box.
But you just caught it beautifully.
Tam Boyd crossed it for the right, and I caught it in the volley, right over Pat Bonner, into the top roof, into the roof of the net, and that put us ahead. Celtic actually equalised. I'm sure it was Andy Walker equalised,
Right.
the ex-Motherwell boy.
Yeah.
Dougie Arnott put us ahead, and Celtic came back and equalised again. So the game ended 2-2. But there was no cameras at games in the days. And it's a shame, because people might have thought I could have played. But it was a lovely comment. It was in the Glasgow Herald, and I forget who the guy was, but he said it was a stunning piece of skill. And so I cut that out and shoved it in a wee scrapbook.
I'm happy with
to
that.
make people think when they look back that things did actually happen.
Yeah. And can I ask you this, only on a nostalgic basis, because Roughie and I always chat about it, because he was kind enough to give us his shirt from the Maracanã when Scotland played Brazil. Are there any shirts that you've kept along the way?
No, I would love to have kept things, but such is my nature. I've always skied things away.
Yeah.
To people who really wanted them. You know, when my first division championship medal, when I went to visit the wee boy in hospital who had leukemia, and I showed him my medal, and he was so taken by it, I told him to keep it.
Wow.
So I've given things away. My jersey that I got is Motherwell's greatest ever team, you know. As much as I felt uncomfortable with that. I did love the jersey, but when one of my relatives came and said, "Oh man, that's amazing," I gave that away as well.
Wow.
You know, so.
Well,
but because my philosophy being that something else will come. There'll be something else coming next. Just that's the past. Acknowledge it, let it go, and then let's see what's coming next. That should be the attitude, you know.
Yeah.
They think back and think that was wonderful, but it's got to go. I'm afraid what's next has got to be the attitude. If you rest on your laurels, as Frank Carson told Tam, you're going to decay and you're going to die.
Yeah.
You've not been allowed to do it in this game. Roughie's not been allowed to do it in this game or on the after dinner circuit. So hopefully for yourself and for the boys, something lovely's coming.
Yeah, well, I can't think of a better way to end it. I know there's...
You're not doing an auction, no?
No, I was going to...
I'm just sorry. That's what I was assuming happens now.
I was going...
Can't sold me raffle tickets before the show.
It's such a great line from Johnny saying, you know, you don't look back and you just... Something great's going to happen. Join us tomorrow, and that might happen with Roughie. We're still waiting at this moment, but I'm sure it will materialise. The big man, John Gahagan, was an absolute joy having you on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Enjoyed the chat. Enjoyed the look back as well from Roughie, from Tam, from John Gahagan, and myself. Don't forget you can get this podcast on all the audio networks and on PLZ Soccer's YouTube channel. Thank you for sticking with us and putting us into the top 10 in the charts. If we get to number 1, I might sit down with Tam and Roughie and negotiate something. Yes, grains of sand. Thanks to John Gahagan. Thanks for listening and watching.